heart of a quiet forest, Officer James expected nothing more than another routine patrol with his faithful K9 partner. But the calm was shattered when Rex, his loyal German shepherd, suddenly froze. His fur bristled, his body rigid, and he began barking wildly at an ancient oak tree. James followed his companion's gaze and noticed something strange. The massive trunk bore an unnatural bulge. Swollen and grotesque, tree itself were alive. From its cracks seeped a thick black sap, oozing like blood from an open wound. At first, James tried to dismiss it as rot or disease, but Rex's frantic warning told him this was no ordinary tree. Every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. With shaky hands, James pulled a knife from his belt. He pressed the blade against the lump and made a careful cut. What spilled out left him frozen in place. His heart pounded, his breath caught in his throat. Lay inside made his blood run cold. The horrifying discovery would leave the entire town in disbelief. But before we go further, take a second to hit like and subscribe, and tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. That morning, the forest felt unusually still, a silence so deep it seemed to smother every sound. Officer James adjusted his cap as his boots crunched softly against the blanket of fallen leaves. Rex walked close at his side, nose to the ground, alert for danger. The two had patrolled this path countless times before, but today, something in the air felt different, heavier, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. Rex slowed, his ears flicking, muscles tense. A low growl rumbled in his chest as his gaze fixed on the towering oak ahead. James frowned, instantly alert. Normally calm, Rex was now rigid, every fiber of his body signaling a threat James couldn't yet see. Shadows wrapped around the ancient oak, its trunk stretching upward like a silent sentinel. It looked like any other tree, yet Rex refused to budge. His hackles rose, his growl deepened, and then, with explosive urgency, he barked, the sound ricocheting through the forest like a warning siren. His paws tore into the soil as he lunged toward the tree, leash straining tight in James's grip. No matter how hard James pulled, Rex would not back away. Rex's bark wasn't just noise. It was urgent, desperate, almost a plea for James to pay attention. Officer's pulse quickened. "Easy, boy," he whispered, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his own unease. Stepping closer, James scanned the oak's rough surface. That's when he saw it, a massive bulge swelling unnaturally from the trunk, as if the tree were nursing a wound it could never heal. From its cracks seeped thick, tar-like sap, dripping slowly onto the forest floor. The substance glistened faintly in the dim light, but its color was wrong. Too dark. Too heavy. Almost like blood. James's stomach knotted. Crouched for a better look, suddenly aware of the knife tugging at his belt, as though it had doubled in weight. Rex's barking intensified, taut with tension, eyes blazing with urgency. James hesitated, glancing around the eerily silent forest as a chill crawled up his spine. He had seen strange things on patrol before, but nothing that made his instinct scream quite like this. This wasn't just a tree. Something was hidden inside, and Rex wanted it brought to light. Wiping sweat from his brow, James wrapped his fingers tightly around the knife's handle. Rex's furious barks had deepened into guttural growls that rattled through the stillness. James drew in a sharp breath, steadying himself, the blade against the swollen lump. The bark yielded too easily beneath the steel. It felt soft, almost like flesh, and James froze for a heartbeat, wondering if cutting further was even safe. But Rex's low, urgent growl pushed him onward. With one swift motion, James sliced through. A sound unlike anything he'd ever heard tore through the quiet. A wet, ripping noise that sent chills racing down his spine. Dark liquid gushed out, down the trunk in heavy streams staining the roots below. James stumbled back, eyes wide. Trees weren't supposed to bleed. Then the bulge shuddered, moved as if something alive had been trapped inside. Rex lunged forward, barking ferociously, straining against the leash until James had to hold him back with all his strength. Hand trembling, James widened the gash. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. There it was, something buried inside, glinting faintly beneath the black ooze. Not wood, not sap, something man-made. James's breath hitched. Whatever this was, it didn't belong in a tree, and uncovering it might change everything. His knife scraped against the object, sending a metallic clang echoing through the forest. James froze, breath caught in his throat. Rex barked frantically, clawing at the dirt as if trying to free it himself. Determined now, James carved deeper, back layers of bark until the shape emerged. A strange metal casing, wedged deep inside the swollen trunk. It looked old, corroded by time, till glimmered faintly under the sticky sap. James's pulse hammered. What on earth? He muttered, his voice unsteady. bracing himself at the object, pulling with both hands until, with a sickening squelch, it slid free from the tree's grasp. The casing was far heavier than it looked, surface coated in a thick layer of resin. James wiped it with his sleeve, revealing faint engravings that made his stomach knot. Numbers, a date, faded military insignia. His heart nearly stopped. This wasn't random debris stuffed into a tree. This was evidence. Before he could process the weight of that realization, the casing cracked open with a sharp pop, releasing a stench so foul it turned his stomach. James recoiled, dropping it, as the sour odor of decay clung to the air. Inside, a scrap of fabric peeked through. Frayed, discolored and unmistakably human. Wasn't just metal hidden in the oak. It was something far darker. Something that had no right to be buried here. Rex's growl deepened. Gaze locked on the tree, body braced as though to protect James from whatever nightmare they had just uncovered. Forcing his trembling hands to move, pried the casing open further. The smell thickened, suffocating, pressing down on him like a physical weight. Resin cracked away, torn cloth and brittle strands of hair. James's eyes widened in horror. This wasn't a container. It was a coffin. A crude, makeshift tomb. Human remains hidden inside the living wood. The world seemed to spin. All James could hear was Rex's frantic barking, warning him, urging caution. Slowly, James knelt on the forest floor and lifted a piece of the fabric. Once bright, now dull and grimy, caught when he saw the patch sewn into the corner. An old military insignia. His chest tightened. These were the bones of a soldier, a man who had disappeared decades ago, never brought home. Suddenly, the strange bulge, the sap and Rex's unshakable determination all made sense. This wasn't an accident. This was fate dragging the past into the light. The weight of history pressed on James's shoulders. Who had done this? Had a fallen hero been hidden here, denied the honor he deserved? Anger and grief tangled inside him. The forest no longer felt silent. It felt haunted, winged with the cries of the forgotten. And as James stared into the hollow trunk, one truth became painfully clear. Uncovering this was only the beginning. The time James stood, his uniform was soaked with sweat and dirt. Rex stayed pressed to his side, loyal eyes never leaving him. Word of the discovery spread quickly, and soon the clearing filled with officers, townsfolk, even local reporters. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the remains were carefully removed, wrapped in a flag. After decades in silence, the soldier would finally be honored. Spoke softly, his voice carrying over the hushed gathering. This man was forgotten, hidden where no one could find him. But Rex knew, he brought us here. Now this hero will receive the dignity he deserves. Tears burned his eyes as he looked down at his partner. Rex wagged his tail slowly, as if he understood the gravity of what they had uncovered. The community bowed their heads in unison, a silence thick with respect. That evening, town gathered in the square for a memorial. Hundreds of candles flickered against the night sky, their flames reflecting off tear-streaked faces. For James, recovery was about more than solving a mystery. It was about healing wounds buried long ago. And as Rex sat faithfully by his side, James realized something he would never forget. Sometimes the past isn't unearthed by chance, but by loyalty, instinct, and a bond strong enough to refuse silence.